Welcome to the Green Wasp Removal YouTube channel. In this episode, we're going to show you the removal of a very hungry and active Vespula Germanica nest. The nest was located too close for comfort to a back porch door, which left live wasps literally inches from people's faces. So this one had to go right away. We had to remove some soffit and then remove some water-damaged wood, and then finally remove the nest itself. The nest was filled with larvae and pupating wasps that were soon to emerge as adults. It was a good-sized nest for a study specimen, so despite being an invasive species that we'd normally terminate, we relocated it into a glass habitat that we placed inside a box for cover to simulate a cavity-spaced dwelling, so we could watch the development of this nest as it grows. We'll do updates on this nest, and we'll pull it out of the cavity-dwelling box every now and then to show you how it looks through the glass. For now, let's get to it and show you how this one began. So when we got the call for this nest, the property owner said he had been renting to some students and they'd reported some Yellowjacket activity. And sure enough, when we arrived on site, we saw a very aggressive nest. They were feeding heavily, bringing a lot of insects back to the nest that they had hunted, and they're going to feed these to their larvae. And they were so hungry they were attacking each other as the food came into the nest. It was so busy that we saw Yellowjackets coming and going from the groove spaces across a span of about 4 feet of soffit. So we knew it would be a pretty high population nest, but we didn't know exactly where along that span of soffit it would be located. So we knew we'd have to do some vacuuming up of the adult foragers before we could start opening up the soffit spaces. Then we'd have to do some exploratory work to find the nest. So as a green company, we don't use any toxics. No poisons, no foggers, no sprays, none of that. We don't want any of that in the local ecosystem or the local environment. We especially don't want that in any clients' homes or living spaces or those that they rent to others. So what we use is an extraction process that's a vacuum technique, and within that process we vacuum out hundreds of adult foragers who are coming and going or attacking. And through this process, we reduce the numbers in that nest significantly before we actually attempt to open up any spaces and dig them out of whatever cavity they're in. And that's an important process. There's a couple of reasons for this. One is obviously it reduces any sting risk to the technicians that are doing the job. It also reduces the sting risk to any pets or people that may be at the property itself or passing by the property even. What we don't want is to create a huge swarm that gets out of control. So we want to control that from the very beginning of the job. And the vacuum extraction is a huge part of that. The vacuum extraction phase of the job varies quite a bit as far as timing. Sometimes it takes quite a while to get all of the foragers contained because there's just a lot of them out of the nest at the time. Other times it's a relatively quick process and we reduce the population pretty efficiently, and there's just not that many out of the nest to deal with at that moment. Once we get most of them vacuumed up and there doesn't appear to be a lot more around, we'll bang on the soffit, we'll make some noise, we can't get any more stirred up. Then we know it's time to move along and check the vacuum, see how many are in there, and then we're going to start looking at opening up the cavity space that they may be hiding in. So what you see here so far is the foragers that have been out looking for nesting material and looking for protein for their larvae. And we capture them as they return instinctually to the nest. And they return always through the same openings by instinct. So when you vacuum these foragers up, you want to keep the hose by whatever instinctual entry point they're using. That way you can catch them as they come back. You also catch a few as they leave, but mostly when they return. So we got the bulk of the foragers done. Now we're going to go inside the soffit and try to find the nest. So when we remove the soffit, we found some damaged wood and a big old hole. That is the type of place that Vespula wasps love to live. So they're cavity dwellers. and that's an ideal space for them. So it's most likely that despite all of the different entry points along this soffit, they're probably aiming for this space. So we're going to put a camera up there and see what we can see. So there's nothing obvious right in the entry point of that hole. So we're going to do a little more exploring underneath the dead wood. All that destroyed wood, a lot of that damage is water, but some of it is from the actual Vespula nest. Here you see the extent of the soffit damage. Old water damage, chewed wood. As you see, they're trying to land and figure out where they are. We disturbed their usual exit points and entry points, so they're trying to figure out how to get home. So we're doing a little bit of exploration on this because it's not obvious where the nest is located at the moment. You have to do a little bit more work on it. Beautiful nest. Looks like Germanica. I hate to destroy that perfect engineering, but these guys cannot stay here. I love the browns and the greens and natural earth tones. Each color is a different type of foraged wood. You can see a few of the survivors hanging out in the back. They are mightily confused. They don't know quite how to deal with this situation. There's a few foragers coming back still, as you can see, trying to figure out how to get into their house, because once you remove their doors, they don't know what's going on. Hi guys. Yeah, I'm sorry I have to wreck your house, but today's the day you have to go. I'll show you my hand for comparison. So it's not a huge nest right now, but now's the time to get it before it gets bigger. So the homeowner did the right thing, calling it in now. Because at peak season, this thing will get to be 2-3 times the size it is now. Starting to attack the camera because of the light. So as we go up here, we're going to remove the paper first. I like to preserve the paper. So we now have the nest out of the cavity. And a lot of foragers are coming back now, so we'll mop up by collecting those. There's some envelope left up there, but no nest anymore. So we'll get rid of that as well. Meanwhile, over here, this is the queen. She's doing her best to stay hidden, trying to find the nest. So we put her back on the nest. Here. These wasps have attempted to sting my glove, and when I wiped them away from the glove, their venom sac was pulled out, so that killed them. Or they're dying because of that. The rest of the workers are either still attempting to maintain the nest or they've been vacuumed up. So this nest is down and removed. Next step is to just clear out any debris in the top of the soffits, and then we inspected the other soffits cavities to see if there was any more nesting material or any other activity or any other indication of an active nest. And there is not. So this is it for this particular part of the house. So we're going to close up the soffit just temporarily because the homeowner is going to have to put new board up here later on. But otherwise, this one's completed. So after the job, we always take a look at the species up close. We strain them out of the vacuum, put them out on a drying tray, and we do a microscopic look at them to make sure the species identification is correct, because there are many yellowjacket species, maybe over a dozen in the States alone. In this area, we only see a few of those, but we want to make sure we're accurate. So here we have the nest from the soffit eaves. You can see some of the foragers who were still with the nest when it was collected, and others that have probably hatched out since it was in there, since there's a lot of pupating cells in this nest. They may have been born in the bin. It's been about 24 hours since we brought it in here. And there's still workers in there, the queen is in there. So we're going to study this nest, and we want it in a glass enclosure. So we have a large glass jar. We're going to put it in that jar, and then put the jar into this box, and we're just going to leave it outside and let it grow. And then whenever we want to observe the growth in the nest, we'll open up the box and we'll look at the jar. So that's the plan. They're working on it, trying to get me. But hopefully they'll just settle down now. Sorry guys, you need to get out of here. So right now they're doing some flights around the bin, trying to figure out where they are. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this box and we're going to set the jar in the box to give it a little bit of cover. So it'll be like this. And then we're going to close it. Just a little bit. And leave it open enough for them to fly out. You can see it in there. So that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching. We'll give you an update on this Vespula Germanica relocation as we study it throughout the rest of the season. Have a good one.